Hey all, and welcome back to Ascendancy Gaming and the start of Leaguestarter testing ready for 3.23. I'm not going to get time to play the event seriously, so I thought it's time to start testing some League Start ideas. This is going to be a series of videos leading all the way up to League Start, and it's going to be my sole focus from here on out. Now I'm pretty much done with the league. Now before people jump down my throat, I know we're a long way from League Start and patch notes can obviously decimate builds. The idea of this series is to test out as many builds that are currently viable that I might want to play at League Start as possible, so I can then make a decision once patch notes come out about what build I might want to play and what builds need to go on the scrap heap. These are not guides to look at when 3.23 comes out. This is purely testing in preparation for builds. People who follow my builds will know I like to go into an insane level of detail on them, and to do that I have to do a lot of prep work before patch notes because there just isn't time once they hit. If I have 4, 5 or 6 different builds that I think might work, then I'm pretty sure one of them is going to survive, if not improve. Now I'm going to go through what the series is going to entail because there are a few rules that I put in place. I'm only going to mention it on this video just so each video doesn't have this introduction. First, it's got to be on a fresh account. I want to get as good an experience from a League Start as I can. Secondly, any loot and gear is going to be based on day 1 to 3 prices of PoE Ninja. That includes both buying and selling. It means I can't get 10C, go and buy a really good 6-link of trade and say that that's a League Start build. Where possible, all gear except for a 5 or 6-link chest is going to be SSF, apart from uniques that are consistently cheap at League Start and readily available. The build must be able to do the quest Exile and Eater on a 5-link and minimal investment, as I don't want to spend time farming to actually take these bosses down. I just want to maybe spend half an hour to an hour farming whatever league mechanic I want to get gear and then go straight through and kill Exile and Eater. I'm going to record the time it takes to get the first 2 Void Stones, the time it takes to clear non-unique Atlas maps, and then I'm going to record all of the deaths. Lastly, I'm going to rate the build in regard to ease of play, any fun and frustration factor that comes into play, how it feels in T16 maps when it's finished, and what's the potential to actually farm currency on the build on day 2 or 3 of the league. As I say, the idea is that at League Start, people, including myself, can look back at these videos to see if there's a build that might suit them or see how a build performed based on patch notes. What I will do when patch notes are out on these videos is just put a comment in the video description about whether they're viable and whether I would recommend playing them. Now with that explanation out of the way, let's jump into the first build, which is Tornado Shot Deadyeye. Every single league for the last 5 or 6 leagues, I've always ended up playing Tornado Shot at some point. And I'm not a huge fan of transitioning from one build to another, so I thought why not try Tornado Shot from the start. Now the first issue is the skill is really not playable without extra projectiles, some projectile speed and chain. So it's really not possible to put this skill on at level 28 and level with it. So it's Lightning Arrow or Rain of Arrows through the campaign, switching to Tornado Shot when you complete the 3rd lab in Act 10. For this particular one, there's no campaign leveling guide for this one as I just copied Havoc's recent video. I swapped his mana forge setup for some ballistas but pretty much did everything else the same, and Lightning Arrow felt really good. There's a link in the description to his video along with Crouching Tuner's League Start guide for this league. They both explain in detail how to progress through the campaign. The only difference with this build, because we're going to go Tornado Shot straight away, is we need to take the Chain Ascendancy because Pierce does nothing and Chain and Ricochet give us massive upsides. So let's go through the character progress from Act 10 to collecting the first 2 Void Stones and then to Atlas completion. First thing to note, which is probably most important, is have a loot filter that shows you items that you need for your build. This can honestly be the difference between having a great League Start to having an awful one, especially if you want to craft your own gear. So before I even started mapping, I created a filter that highlighted the armor bases and weapon bases that I wanted. So when I started farming essences, I had crafted bases ready to go. I'd recommend you do this for any character you level at League Start if you want to get your own gear together. So I started the character in SSF and then migrated to trade when I hit yellow maps to purchase a 5-link. Normally in Trade League, I will buy a 5-link as soon as I hit maps as there are only a few chaos. I completed Eater and Exile on a 5-link and cleared most of the Atlas on this setup. Then when I had enough currency to afford a League Start 6-link, I upgraded to a 6-link body armor. Now the main thing with the bow skill is deciding when to transition away from non-crit precise technique to a full crit build. I decided I didn't want to spend the time farming essences to craft crit gear to get Eater and Exile done, so I pushed a T16 on a 5-link non-crit. Looking back, this was a mistake. Didn't feel amazing, but it did just about get the job done. I definitely should have spent an hour or so farming essences in lower tier maps to craft a bow and quiver to enable me to swap to crit. After I killed Eater and Exile, I did then decide to swap to crit because I just felt the DPS was not quite where I wanted it to be, and I immediately noticed the increase in DPS. As I say, if I was to do this over, I would 100% swap earlier. I then farmed some more essences to get some better DPS gear. So in regards to my Atlas, I went essences straight away. So this is the tree that I settled on. But to start with, I took Prolific Essence, I went up here, then I powered through all of the Kirat nodes, then straight to Amplified Energies, and then to Crystal Resonance. I didn't bother with Crystal Lattice earlier on because it can make them too difficult even in white maps. Then once I had my essences, I then went and took Shape in the Skies, Shape in the Mountains, took some of these map nodes here, and then up to take Shaping the World. That then gave me a really good platform to farm essences, but also still get map drops. With these Kirat nodes here and this major one here, I was able to build up quite a lot of Kirat missions. What I did after that was decided that I still may want to drop back to essences. So what I've done is then just filled out map duplication and connected monster map drops, and then taken Wandering Path when I wanted to push my Atlas. Eventually I got to 100% chance for a monster to drop the connected map, and then a decent chance for map drops to be duplicated. I then progressed my Atlas. If I ever felt I hit a roadblock in terms of gear, I would just take Wandering Path off, and then my essence nodes will come back into play, and I can just drop to lower tier maps and farm essences to craft my gear. And this worked really well. And unless there's changes to either Wandering Path or essences, I'll 100% do this at Leaguestarter. The only difference might be that you may need to take 7th gate if essence isn't on the map device, which means you need a few more points because you've got to allocate all of the gateways. But apart from that, this is definitely how I'm going to progress my Atlas. It felt super smooth. It had the section where I used essences to gear up, and then you just click Wandering Path on, and then you get map drops for fun. If we just quickly look over my stash after around 17 hours, you can see I've built up an absolute ton of red maps from using this strategy, and I've never ever had any issues where I felt like I had to drop back in map tiers because I didn't have the higher tiers that I needed to progress. It felt really, really comfortable. And then the only thing I did for the final push was I added in Wrath of the Cosmos and these Searing Exarch pack sizes, along with Grown Hordes in case I found Rusted Scabs, I could just throw them in. And then I'm farming Mausoleum maps to get altars. Mausoleum because the boss doesn't spawn on the map, so you always get minion altars. Normally, every league, there's one map you can do this on. Jungle Valley is another example where the boss doesn't spawn, so you get a ton of minion altars, and then you just flick between that map and whatever map is connected. You get the maps done really, really quick. You get Exarch invitations, and you get tons of loot from the altars that you can sell in bulk, nice and easy. So all the gear is just essence crafted. So I've got a bow that I crafted with essences of wrath until I hit a secondary damage, and then I've crafted crit. The quiver, I've used crit multi essences and then just waited till I hit something half decent. Ideally, I would have loved projectile speed on this as well, but this quiver is ample good enough for a league start. For the amulet, what we've done on this again is use crit multi essences. We got pretty lucky with this amulet in that we got attributes, LE damage, crit multi and flat damage. But we are missing resistances, which you might want, and we've had to craft life, so you can't craft non-channeling skills, which I haven't actually unlocked yet because Elrion has been an absolute pain. Rings, I think I just found these rings. I don't think these are even crafted. These are just bog standard resistance rings. The helmet again, life, resistances. I did manage to roll mana cost of attacks with some lesser embers. All my other implicits are junk because I didn't finish rolling them. The boots are pretty bad. Low movement speed, low life, low resistances. The gloves, really bad as well. Very low life and some resistances. I did get a Stygian Vise, which I crafted a half decent one again with essences, but I haven't found the jewel that I can put in there yet. So really, this should probably be a heavy belt at this point. So the chest piece, I was just about to come on and say I crafted it without life so I could use a mastery. Without noticing smack bang on the bottom that has got a regen life, which is obviously a life mod. So I've taken a mastery that does nothing. And that means this chest really does nothing because we could get some life on this. So let's recraft it. I also make a cock up with a flask that we'll come on to in a minute. So I need fire resistance on this because I'm a bit low. I mean, we could recraft stuff. So we're going to craft it firstly with strength essences because we could probably do with some strength. So they're both absolute garbage. We'll go Wrath essences. That is also got chaos shares, but not a lot else. We could craft fire resistance and then the mastery actually does something. So let's do that. Let's go and craft fire resistance on this. Hope that that's enough to cap me. If not, we can rejig some gear. So now my life should shoot up a bit because that mastery will actually do something. This counts. I did not realize the implicits counted. Right, we need to roll away that implicit. Hello. Learn something new every day. Right, so that is a Exile implicit. So let's get that rolled off. That'll do. There we go. 3,700. Much better. So the chest, actually corrected, is resistances, evasion. That's it. No life so that we can use the mastery, but you can obviously just craft life on the chest and not run the mastery. It's totally up to you. What I should have done is paid attention to these flasks because this is rubbish. This should be crit, and I thought it was. I have no idea. So there we go. This will do. Not amazing, but okay. So that now should put the DPS up quite a bit more. Did not realize that I didn't have crit on this flask. We've rolled quite a low tier 2, but that's absolutely fine for this stage. In the tree, there's no jewels at all because I don't know what sort of cost jewels are at League Start. I'm kind of aware of what 6 links are. They're kind of between 50 to 80C on day 1 or 2. And I know how much a 5 link is. It's a handful of chaos. But outside of that, I don't really know the market at League Start, which is why I'm crafting the rest of the gear myself. So yeah, with the flask actually sorted out, we have a silver flask with attack speed, jade flask with evasion, diamond flask for crit, a quicksilver flask with reduced effect of curses, and then a bleeding life flask. I've only found 2 divine vessels. The first one I went for burning ground because I was farming exile culters. The second I haven't used yet because I actually quite like using Solar Lunaris. So if I get frozen, I get frozen. I think I've been frozen once in my whole playthrough. So yes, can't be frozen is pretty important to guarantee you survive. But as I said, I've been frozen once and I didn't die. And then I've just crafted reduced effective chill on a ring just so that I don't ever get chilled for like 20-25%. So let's talk about how the build felt overall. I think it did feel okay, but I think as a League starter, Rain of Arrows and Lightning Arrow are probably going to feel better. But as League starters go, it was pretty good. I've certainly had way worse League start builds, and it just backs up that anyone who says you can't League start Tornado Shot has obviously not tried it. I will say you do need some experience in bow builds. It's very hard to get even above 3k life. You don't really have any defenses other than evasion and spell suppression. So if you are a player that is not good at dodging things, you may end up dying quite a lot. The build does feel a little clunky, even with haste and tailwind, as getting a bow with attack speed, crit, and elemental DPS is not really viable whilst you're gearing up because it's going to cost multiple divines. So I sacrificed attack speed and I just had a bow with LE damage and crit. Single target overall was pretty good. I think by the time I stopped playing, my pinnacle boss DPS was somewhere between 1 to 1.5 million. If this was in a trade environment, I would have upgraded my gear more, spent some more currency I farmed, probably to get Calm Spirit and Vol's Vision to go Rage to make the build much better with burst DPS, much faster and tankier through Berserk. The build, as I said, is squishy. As per any Deadyeye build, you cannot get defenses in and damage. And as I said, it's hard to get above 3k life early on. Your defenses basically don't get hit. If people haven't played a bow build before, I think they'd be better off going something like Pathfinder Toxic Rain or Rain of Arrows Champion or Rain of Arrows Raider. Even on the budget gear I had, altar farming did feel okay, and I was getting around Mausoleum maps in less than 2 minutes on average. I did level up to 93, I died 31 times in the whole playthrough. Overall, I definitely felt the squishiness, but I was happy getting to 93 and you don't really need to level past that for much longer. I didn't really, however, do any serious Atlas strategies and any league mechanics outside of just altar farming. So you certainly couldn't go in and farm legions or breaches or logbooks as the overall build just isn't there. But I will reiterate, this build is super bare bones. So overall, I think this build is 100% a decent League starter. It's not the best, but if someone just wanted to outright play TS, I really don't see the problem with League starting it. It is slightly worse than Lightning Arrow and Rain of Arrows to an extent, but you don't have the hassle of transitioning from another build. So let's just quickly go over the Ascendancy I picked, and then we'll do a quick map showcase to round off the video. The POB for when I killed Eater and Exarch is in the video description, along with the POB for the character, how it is now. So in terms of Ascendancy, when I was Eater Exarch, I was Focal Point, Gathering Wind, Ricochet, and Endless Munitions. I think Focal Point is a must if you're going to go and kill bosses early on because you need that extra damage. You also can't guarantee you can stay a long distance away from the bosses, so fast shot might not be great. Also, the further your projectiles travel, the less likely the secondary ones are to hit the same target. Once I got the bosses down and decided I was just going to farm some altars, I then just respect Focal Point and then went fast shot because then you can kill stuff from a distance. It's a bit safer. So as I mentioned at the moment, we're just doing a very simple altar farm, not even alking or transmuting the maps. We're just running them as they drop. So we'll go and do a mausoleum. So I don't really want increase effect to cursor, as it seems silly to gimp myself in the map. This is fine because we're not going to kill the boss, and power charge on hit is not too much of an issue. So let's go and farm this map, and then we'll close the video out. So let's say this is 17 and a bit hours in on all the Essence Crafted gear that we've already gone through. We'll go to Exarch. Now let's hope we at least get some altars, because we are running Wrath of the Cosmos, so it is a little bit deadly for kind of a beginner build, but I'd rather take the risk and take a few deaths if we can end up getting, you know, tons of Chaos Orbs and Awakened Sextants and what have you out the map. It makes sense to me in softcore to do that. And if you don't get altars, then you get one progression to your Exarch and you're in and out the map probably in a minute, minute and a half. You will come across packs that are difficult. You get like crit resistance, cycling resistances. When they get super aggro like haste and empowers allies, it can be a little bit difficult. So there's our Glacier map, which we were guaranteed to drop because of our connected map nodes. So it doesn't look like we're going to get anything out of this map, but this is kind of what I've been doing. In and out nice and quick. You probably don't even need to spend the time killing these rares, but I will just in case they drop something. I've also put a very strict loot filter on for this farm, which is why you're not seeing any loot drop. I've basically anything that's not worth a chaos, I'm not including. You probably wouldn't have as tight a filter at this point of the league, but I got fed up picking stuff up like 6 sockets and things like that. So you just run through, clear the map. We didn't get anything from that one, so then you would essentially just go back in your portal and run the next map. So what I'll do is just show you a Glacier, because these are the two maps you ping pong between. It will be Glacier and Mausoleum for this particular league. And I'm only really running Glacier up to the point I get a Mausoleum drop and then I'm leaving, unless I get an altar that's going to be worth some sort of currency. And because we've got almost a 40% duplication chance for maps, you're going to end up a lot of the time when you drop a Mausoleum map dropping 2. So you can just quickly run like 10 Glaciers. You're probably going to be a minute each, if that. And then you can build up your Mausoleum maps and then go again. So there's one. So at that point, I'd decide whether I want to stay in. There's no more altars, so I don't. You obviously wouldn't ping pong one map at a time. You'd obviously build up your supply, but I want to try and get a map with some altars in. We don't really want max resist when we can just reroll that for a transmute. Seems a bit silly. That'll do. And you quickly build up your Exarch invitations. You're going to get Eldritch currency and obviously the usual things that drop from altars. It would be better to make the maps rare because you're definitely going to get more out of them. But it does make them a lot harder on what is a pretty basic build. And I found that I was maybe 30 seconds to a minute more in those maps. So we do get a minion one, but it's junk. It's like div cards. Well, you could technically get something good, but... So yeah, I just went with the either magic or scoured maps. You also might want to level up at this stage. So I think I leveled from 91 to 93 in these maps because they're pretty safe with Tornado Shot. You kind of keep everything at arm's length. You will come across the odd stupid enemy that might kill you, but overall it's pretty comfortable. So we got our Glacier maps drop there, so we'll go and pick those up. See if we can maybe get another altar with something that's actually worthwhile rather than some random div card. And I have had some good stuff drop. I've had a couple of big uniques drop that are worth currency, but obviously that's, you know, RNG. And I always get them in my practice runs. when it comes to the real thing. I probably won't. No Raw Divine drop yet, though. So this one is crit resistant and 4 mod, so he's going to be a bit tanky, and he's absolutely wrecking me. So we'll go and finish him off. And then round to finish the last bit of the map. So as you can see, a lot of time you don't get a lot from the map. So maybe you've got like a Chaos Orb and I'm making out of that map, but they're super quick. So you probably pick up these in a League Start scenario because you're probably going to be able to sell them if they've got a half decent fracture. And that is something I've noticed drop quite a lot. Fractured items and loot explosions, so like maps, scarabs, things like that. So that wouldn't sell, and that wouldn't sell. So you'd instantly bin these off to your nearest vendor. And yeah, that's kind of it. I won't hold you up even longer while I go and try and find a map with some altars. There was plenty of highlight footage running in the background as I was talking. That's it for the video. Tornado Shot done, tested, liked it, am considering it. If there's no changes and there's no amazing new skill, this is probably going to be my League Starter because I just want to give it a go without having to level with a different build, get different gear, skills, transition, all that sort of stuff. I'd rather just go from the off. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.